Signal Sciences secures the most important web applications, APIs, and microservices of the world's leading companies, protecting over 7,500 applications and 150 billion production requests per week. Signal Sciences Next-Gen WAF and RASP help companies increase security and maintain site reliability without sacrificing velocity, all at the lowest total cost of ownership. Signal Sciences' patented technology protects any application against any attack, with integrations into any DevOps toolchain. Signal Sciences, demand more from your WAF. Learn more at signalsciences.com/PSW. Let the team at Black Hills Information Security test your defenses. With over 10 years of experience in penetration testing, red teaming, and threat hunting, the testers at Black Hills will help you find the holes in your security before the bad guys do. The team at Black Hills cares about educating and sharing their knowledge by creating countless blogs, open source tools, and webcasts for you to learn more about the tradecraft of pen testing and red teaming. Visit securityweekly.com/BHIS to join their mailing list and view the latest blogs and webcasts from Black Hills Information Security. The greatest threat to businesses today isn't the outsider trying to get in. It's the people you trust, the ones who already have the keys, your employees, contractors, and privileged users. 60% of online attacks are carried out by insiders. To stop these insider threats, you need to see what users are doing before an incident occurs. Observit enables security teams to detect risky user activity, investigate incidents in minutes, and effectively respond. Get your free trial at observit.com/securityweekly. Welcome back, everyone, to Enterprise Security Weekly. We are running our annual listener feedback survey. You can go to securityweekly.com, click the survey tab, and fill out our 2019 listener survey. We are interested in your feedback, which will help shape this show and all of the shows on our network, in addition to collecting anonymously some information about our audience, which helps us with our metrics and basically who we sell sponsorships to. So please help us out and fill out the survey. With us here for this interview is Haroon Mir, who looks strangely like Adrian Sanabria. No, it's Adrian Sanabria is here with us. Adrian was a former defender of networks, a former analyst, and is now an advocate for Thinkst. Adrian, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. It's good to be here.
Nice to have you, Adrian. To those of you who've tuned into the show in the past, Adrian's no stranger to the show. Adrian and I co-presented, was that earlier this year?
Yes. Yeah, that was this year.
Earlier this year. Wow, it all blends together. So, yeah, it's nice to have you. So, Adrian, you were working in a different company when we co-presented earlier this year. So, what was the kind of led to the change in your role and new position at Thinkst?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So it was, the vendor landscape is still fairly new to me, and something I wanted to do in that last role was run marketing, run with that, see what that's like, learn the whole sales and marketing thing. I was technically product marketing, but in a small company, you do a little of everything, and it was great experience. So when I was looking for the for the next thing to do, honestly, I didn't know if I was going to go be a CISO. I actually had a lead along those lines. I really enjoyed the analyst thing, but the thing that killed me there was you never put hands on product. I really felt I was missing a key piece there by never touching the product, and that was a big concern of mine. And so a lot of opportunities there. And at some point I just threw out on Twitter, hey, I'm trying to figure out what the next thing is going to be. And Haroon popped up in my DMs and was like, hey, what's up?
I think Haroon reads every tweet on Twitter, like every day. He somehow consumes that. He probably has software and stuff that helps him with that, but he is all about Twitter. And he's used it very, very well and much to his advantage. So.
Yeah. I'm not sure how he does that, but he saw that, and he started thinking about it, and he was like, hey, I've got an idea for an experiment here. We didn't have any openings that we were, publishing, or, we weren't actively looking for someone, but since you're free, and me and Haroon have chatted for years, and we're very, think along the same lines, have a lot of the same opinions and ideas. So it made sense to try it out. And it's interesting. The rest of the companies in South Africa, which was 6 hours ahead, now it's 7 hours ahead. Now
Right.
that we've done our time change thing, so there's some interesting aspects to it. Working from home, being a remote employee is certainly not a new thing for me. But it was a pretty exciting opportunity because they're a very unique company in a lot of ways. That are different from what I'm used to as an analyst and working on the
Right.
vendor side.
And, it's interesting, Adrian. My title at Tenable was product evangelist, which is very similar to an advocate, which incorporates aspects of marketing, aspects of being in the community and presenting, aspects of technical. So, I mean, all that kind of comes together when you describe your path. I'm like, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense for what you want to do today, it sounds like.
Yeah, honestly, the word, the only reason I'm using the word advocate, I remember, Javad was making the move from being an analyst at 451, where we both worked together. He's a good friend of mine, and he was going to Alien Vault, and he said, I don't want to use the term evangelist because
Yeah,
he
I
felt
don't
like
like it either.
yeah, it
Agreed.
was already, had
Mm-hmm.
some negative stuff attached to it. So we looked at synonyms, and advocate came up, and that was his title over there.
Yeah, I like that word a
And I
lot
was,
better.
yeah. So I
But
pretty much rolled with
important,
that.
for our audience to know that what that role is, because it does get called different things at different security vendors, and I think it's important for our audience to know what that role does.
Yeah, so for security, a lot of this moves so fast. Education is super important. Educating the customer on why they might need a product, how to use it, all that kind of stuff. Like I think you were doing a bunch of blog posts and videos
Yep.
on here's how you do this very specific thing in Nessus, because Nessus had all these
Mm-hmm.
cool little knobs and dials under the advanced setup that a lot of people didn't know what they're for, how to use them. And honestly, I watched some of your stuff and read through some of your stuff to figure out how to use certain features of Nessus. But here at Thinkst, it's an advocate or evangelist is a very different thing at a company with 16 people versus
Yeah.
a company with 200 to 300.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
now over 1,000.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they very quickly grew very quickly.
So in the enterprise, I mean, many of us know Thinkst Canary for the free and open source Canary tokens and things like that. But in an enterprise setting, it's very applicable. I think maybe our audience may not know that you have a lot of enterprise customers.
Yeah, so that was the thing. Haroon popped up in my DMs. He pitched this thing to me, and I was like, well, obviously they're a well-liked company. You see people saying nice things about them on Twitter all the time. And I actually did a search. You don't find that with a whole lot of security companies. There's not
It's
a
true.
whole lot of companies you can find people, without prompting or anything, not attached to any kind of marketing campaign or anything like that, just coming out and saying, "Man, this thing is great." And so I knew customers loved them, but I was like, these guys are in South Africa. Can they meet my salary requirements? How are all the other things going to work with the company being remote to me like this?
Mm-hmm.
I'd never worked for a company that was based in another country and had no presence in my country. So there were a few things that we had to figure out there. But when he pitched me the company, I mean, my first impression was, man, you guys are way too humble. I had no idea you guys were doing this well. So never taken funding. Like I said, I'm number 16 people, closing in on 700 customers,
Wow.
and I think the biggest customer in terms of product, has close to 1,000 Canaries.
Wow.
And that's a single customer. And yeah. So, it turned out money wasn't really an issue. Like, what are your salary requirements? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. And we moved on from there. And the more I probed and, what about this? What about this? It's a company that very much has it as together on the inside as it does when you look at their products and how refined and user-friendly the products are. They run the company that way as well.
Yeah, and I think the challenge of being an advocate for a security company, for really any company, right, is overcoming the biggest misconceptions about the product, right? We certainly had misconceptions at Tenable. You mentioned Yavid, right? Everyone who's taken on that advocate role, there's always like that short list of the things you have to address all the time. I think with the Canary product line, it's the fact that it may throw one alert per year. And
Yeah.
people wonder, like, is it working? Shouldn't I be seeing more of that? And I think, is that your biggest challenge in terms of the product and being an advocate for Canary?
Honestly, not really. Not in the way that maybe somebody like a FireEye would have that problem, because that was kind of FireEye's pitch back in the day as well, is that, hey, we're not going to, kill you with alerts here. We're only going to tell you when an APT gets in. But the problem is, how do you test that?
Yeah.
And with our product, it's very, very easy to test that it's working, because we're going to send you an alert if somebody does a port scan. Even brand new IT people can figure out how to run Nmap,
right,
and make sure the alerts are working. We're going to alert you when somebody tries to log into SSH on this fake Cisco router. Again, any IT person with a few months of experience can figure out how to use SSH or go to the web port on something. It's very easy to test and validate that it's actually working.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, Adrian, the difference between the open source version of Canary and the enterprise, is it more about the management and the centralization of managing all the canaries? Just for our audience, what's kind of the difference between the open source and the enterprise product?
Well, with the enterprise product, first of all, we've got the two products connected, where we've got the physical canaries, which are, let me actually unplug one here so I can just visually show it off.
And is it still based on the Raspberry Pi hardware platform?
Yeah, it's highly customized, so I wouldn't call it a Raspberry Pi. There's some custom hardware in here. It is ARM based. Like the little LED here is actually a button. You're not going to see any of your familiar Raspberry Pi ports there. If you hook this up to a power meter, you'll find it draws a ton less power than a Raspberry Pi, because there's no need for a GPU. We're not using any of the USB ports.
Yep. The GPU and USB are the ones that draw the most power, right?
Yeah, I mean, I tested this out one day, and the power draw from this thing, I was able to run this off a battery that I used to recharge my phone. This and a little wireless access point, that I use as a wireless bridge to the hotspot on my phone. So I can give a full demo of this in a coffee shop off a battery. Nice. And these two things will run off that one battery that I have for 26 hours before they die.
That's awesome.
To give you an idea of the power usage. Yeah, so we're talking to telcos that are putting this, on poles and sheds, and you can stuff this physical canary into all kinds of small places where you're not going to run an ESX server. You're not going to, and we do have the virtual versions of it as well. So it's interesting that the company started with this physical product. These are actually assembled and shipped out of Johannesburg. But once you start using it, and that is the big difference between the open source version and the commercial version, is this thing takes like 3 minutes to set up. I like to say that, and I've done this, in a lunch, you can set up 20 of these, and by the time everybody comes back, you've got them all done and deployed, and they're going to update themselves, maintain themselves. So you're literally done with the implementation in an hour, good sized implementation.
That's awesome. Now, what about cloud infrastructure, Adrian? If I want to have some type of canary, right, which is essentially a form of deception technology, and I want to have that in my cloud infrastructure, how do I do that?
Yeah, it's the same thing. So we've got those same canaries that you can deploy in the cloud, and it's the same general idea. Obviously, when you pick the personality that it runs, maybe a Cisco router running in AWS or an IBM mainframe in AWS would be kind of weird to see. But on the other hand, we like to say that this has been designed so there's no wrong choices. I remember a large AV company years ago that I was consulting with as part of 451. They were very frustrated because they were a traditional IT company, and we had all the Cylance and the CrowdStrike, the new next gen machine learning stuff. We're just eating their lunch, and they're watching their subscribers just take a dive. And they were walking me through their product, as part of the strategy session, and the config screen just blew my mind. And I was like, no wonder, people are going with these other products. Like, I mean, this is mind boggling. There's so many ways that you can screw yourself over here. There's so much rope to hang yourself with, and just you forget one knob, one dial, then their cool stuff never gets turned on.
Yeah, and we hear that from pen testers, right? That will bypass an EDR product, for example, and then consult with the company afterwards, and basically it comes down to config, right? And then when they go to the next customer, if they've got that config, they're like, yeah, it's much harder, but then that config can drift over time, right? And leave you exposed. And a lot of it does come down to complexity.
Yeah, so I say 3 to 5 minutes, but you could easily spend an hour configuring things on this. You can have it run custom TCP services. You could make it look like somebody's already infected a Windows XP system with Meterpreter, and you could make it look like Meterpreter's sitting there and listening using the custom TCP service. You can obsess over the smallest detail, but we designed it where you can just pick a personality, pick Windows Server 2016, scroll to the bottom, hit save, and never think about it again. Right. And it's still going to catch bad guys. So it's got that default that just works every time. Whereas, if you've ever set up a SIM or something like that, I don't know anybody who's ever been able to use like a canned report out of the box on a SIM. You've got to customize everything. Yeah. And you have to consider that when you buy one of those products, the amount of time you have to put into it to customize it for your environment.
Absolutely. And now, what about integrations? How do I get that alerting and visibility from the Canary products into my other systems?
Yeah, so some of it already exists. Like Demisto already, they went and wrote the Python to integrate our product, where you can build playbooks with theirs. But oftentimes you don't even have to. The alerting, the main thing you're going to want from the Canary is the IP address of the attacker. And maybe some of the additional details that we pull about the attacker when that alert gets sent off. But it's very, very easy to just take that and use that as an input to enrich for more data. I send this over to my MDM or my asset management tool, ServiceNow, and see, is this a corporate managed tool? Is it BYOD, something somebody brought in from home? If somebody hits a web service on the Canary, the user agent is going to get captured, and we can tell you, is this a Mac? Is it Windows? Is it Linux? Is it a phone? And then if you want to have an automated playbook, like one thing I've seen is if somebody hits a Canary on SSH, we've got some product that we're running like command that's going to say step up authentication, has some kind of a rule that's going to say, kill all current SSH connections from this IP address and require two-factor over SSH.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't realize there was that much enterprise integration into the product line.
Yeah. So, formal partnerships, that's one of the things I'm one of the main projects that I'm working on. Like I said, the term advocate, at a company of this size, I'm doing a lot more than just talking to customers and educating and stuff like that. I'm actually building some of these integrations, writing scripts for customers, more of a customer success role on top of a lot of the other things that I'm doing.
Yeah, because the challenge is, companies have made investment in other tools and they need the ability to integrate some of the stuff together. So you become the de facto integration specialist.
Yeah, exactly. And the big thing is, we're taking dwell time from, the average out there is still like 200 days or something like that. We're taking that down to minutes or seconds, after the attacker gets in. So that's the big win right there. And most of our customers, they're just happy to have that. But obviously we want to take that next step when they ask, okay, now what do I do with this alert? Where do I go from there? And that's fortunately it's pretty easy with the product.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was going to ask why someone who works for an enterprise would want to implement some type of deception technology. And I've already heard a lot of the answers, right? I also think on the cost scale for an enterprise solution, you're on the lower side, right? And it also sounds like implementation is really easy as well, which only helps to increase your return on investment.
Yeah, well, the pricing is right there in the website. There's a quote generator, like a starter pack of 5 Canaries is $7,500 a year. And yeah, we've got everybody from giant tech unicorns to banks that are hundreds of years old to national labs that are customers, and small credit unions in California. So it's a really accessible product because it's at the price point it's at and how easy it is to deploy. And yeah, sometimes they don't have any of those other products, so we're just sending them a text message on their phone.
Right.
In other cases, we're sending it to Splunk, or we're sending it to a SIM over Syslog.
Yeah, because it's low,
well.
it's low false positive and low alerting. You could just set it up to do an email or text message, and when you get one, it's something you need to respond to. And I think Haroon was saying that, if you get 5 alerts a year and you investigate 2 of them and they're false positives, but 3 are not, then it's still a great return on investment.
Well, and I mean, with the Canaries, it's never false positive.
Right. If someone went to that device,
they're like degrees, like it's Pete in accounting downloaded Nmap and is playing with it.
Right.
Like, I still want to know.
That's still something good to know. You're absolutely correct. I found that at university all the time, right? Students especially, that would work in the IT department or other departments, or even just people working would just get curious and do things. It's still stuff I want to know about, because sometimes that can lead to incidents that are somewhat security related. For example, someone spun up the RIP routing protocol and started advertising like lower, higher priority routes or lower numbered routes or whatever. And that's an issue, right? That causes an incident, right? So you want to know about those things.
Absolutely. Yeah. So a lot of it's situational awareness, knowing what's going on in your environment.
Yeah. And it helps with, potentially identifying insiders that are trying to do something. Maybe it's not malicious, but it could be malicious. I mean, you still want to know that stuff's going on, that somebody from this team grabbed a scanner and started scanning internally, because what are they looking for, right? That's an anomaly. That should be something that gets investigated. It might have just been play, but it could also be a potential insider threat that needs to be addressed as well.
Or it could be someone you want to recruit onto the security team, right? They're like, hey, I'm studying security. I got curious. It's a teachable moment to ask for permission.
Yeah.
Jason Albuquerque tells great story about someone that moved up within the ranks in his company because they were studying and worked second or third shift and worked another shift on top of that to learn, and is a hugely valuable team member today. So.
Yeah, if you look at the latest Verizon DBIR, and you look at the insider stuff, the vast majority of it is non-malicious, is accidental stuff.
Right.
So absolutely, when it comes to insider stuff, we're typically our own worst enemy there. Where, like the GitLab example, where 3 a.m. somebody was working 16 hours straight and got mixed up between their terminals and deleted the production database, not the test database, and had to find out the hard way that 5 levels of recovery didn't work.
Yeah.
So that's much
we've
more
all been
common
there
than
in some capacity.
Threat.
Yeah, in some capacity, we've all been there. Sure. So any other product announcements, Adrian? Any kind of newer features that you're either working on or have just released?
Yeah, I mean, we're always adding stuff to the product. That's one of the nice things about this kind of product is it's fairly mature at this point. The Canaries have been around for 5 years. The Canary token's almost as long, and it's very easy to add additional ones and additional features and stuff like that. And we're always adding additional personalities to it. We've got a new UI coming out that will allow you to manage multiple Canary groups of Canaries, I should say. Like, a lot of our customers are MSSPs. If you're looking for a breach or an incident in somebody's network, it's a lot easier to find it with Canaries on there. So we've got a lot of MSSPs that kind of invisibly use us with their customers. And right now they have to log into a separate console for every customer. So we're going to have an interface that brings all that together. And some of our larger customers even break up consoles because they don't want any single employee to know where all the Canary tokens are or all the Canaries.
Yeah, it's smart.
Yeah, they want no one to know where all the secrets are buried, basically. And again, Well, so in that use case, they probably leave those consoles separate. But yeah, that new interface, which we call Phlox, is going to add a lot of new functionality to the front end. And then on the back end, we're always adding, new things that, the Canaries can pretend to be, new personalities. And we've got new Canary tokens coming out. Like one of the things we can do is, with the Office 365 token, you could drop a fake email that's written to attract an attacker into 1,000 inboxes all at once, all in one go. So whereas in the past, the customer would have written a script to do that, use the API, now we're making, bigger, more scalable use cases like that much easier.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And in the fall, we currently support AWS and GCP for Cloud Canaries, and Azure will be out later this year.
Sweet. That's awesome.
And you cover the big cloud guys.
Yep.
Adrian, thank you so much for appearing on Enterprise Security Weekly. For folks that want to learn more, you can go to securityweekly.com/canary. Of course, there's open source. Is it open source Canary tokens?
Yeah, so canarytokens.org is a Canary token server that's available for the public to use. Over 100,000 people use it. And then if you want an open source version of the Canary device, the network device, you can just do a Google search for Open Canary.
Awesome. Fantastic. Adrian, thank you so much for appearing on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
With that, we will take a short break and come back with the final segment for this show, an interview with Tim Callan from Sectigo.